Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Elite City Podcast, featuring only me. It's just me today, talking about my wrestling history and just a little bit about me in general. If you don't know, I've been watching wrestling pretty much my entire life. I'm 45 years old, and I started very early watching with my dad, but WrestleMania 3 is my biggest memory. Just the spectacle of everything, obviously, and just, it was magic to watch it. I remember just being blown away and just being in awe, literally, and it just had so much fun watching it over and over and over, which leads me to how I got into weekly wrestling, which is I needed more of the Macho Man. Seeing Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat was unreal to me then, and I didn't even understand the spectacle of it then. It was just, it was mesmerizing to me. I would recreate it with my LJN figures, as much as I could to my memory at the time. But yeah, like I probably had that match with my big LJN rubber figures more than I watched that match, and I probably watched that match 500 times. I mean, it was just, everything about it was so perfect, and just, if you've never seen Macho Man versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, highly, highly, highly recommended match. WrestleMania 3 in general, but just that match is, if Andre and Hogan weren't on that card, that match would be bigger in wrestling history than it is. That being said, I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to like the Macho Man because he was a bad guy. I didn't care, but at the same time I was confused because everybody liked Hulk Hogan and I didn't. And I was just all about the Macho Man. And I believe I'm going to have to ask my parents. I'll have to ask my mom or dad here. And if I can find it, Rick, I'll send you the picture and you can post it. I believe there's a picture of me dressed as the Macho Man for like my 5th birthday. And I like had the fake beard drawn on and everything. It's pinnacle me. Yeah, also dressed as Macho Man for Halloween like 3 years ago. So it's a lifelong thing. But yeah, just, that match is so I'm just thinking about it now, literally in my head, and just the moments and the oohs and ahs that you still get. Oh, that's wrestling. Oh, I love it. Anyways, music also plays an enormous role in my life. As I always post to these people that we do this podcast with, my Apple Music stats are like insane every year. I think Rick said to me, I've listened to the Misfits more than he listened to his entire music library for the year of 2024. And that was just one artist. Like, if I'm not over 100,000 minutes, I did something wrong. I love music. I love collecting music. I love getting deep into music. And I think that's why I like independent wrestling, and we'll get there in a second. But some of my favorite must listen to bands on a daily basis are, well, of course, the Misfits, Sam Hain, Midnight, great band. I'm not going to get into it because I'll just sit here and name bands that you should listen to all day. But yeah, listen to Misfits and Sam Hain. Start there. Anyways, but yeah, music is life, and just growing up in a time when like punk rock had its resurgence in the or like mid 90s, early 90s, being a teenager then was incredible. I mean, I saw shows that I had no business seeing, and it was awesome. I always joke around saying that I would die for the punk rock scene, and I probably would give it a good shot if it came down to it. I mean, it means that much to me. Some of those people I met way back then are friends to this day. I mean, I was in people's weddings. And we're still all the same people, which is weird. And that gets into my liking of very niche things and the argument that I always have on this show is when things get too big and I run away. It comes from that mentality of that early punk rock scene. That was taken very seriously, and I was brought in by people who took it very seriously, and it means the world to me. And I take that whole shebang seriously. It's a lifestyle, and until the day I die, I will be that. But that goes on to hand in hand, hardcore wrestling, hardcore music. It's weird how they parallel each other. And during that same time, when ECW was big in the late 90s, I was the straight edge warrior. I was going to change the world via not doing drugs like you're not supposed to. It just made no sense. But anyways, it was again, another scene that people take things very seriously. And it was so awesome to be a part of that. Again, thinking you're going to change the world is one thing, but going to the ECW shows was crazy because that was, I mean, everybody said it, that was like the punk rock company. Even though Vince was giving them some money here and there and letting them use cameras and stuff. I mean, that's all known, but they weren't the $1 million corporation, and it was a little dangerous, very dangerous technically, what the people in the ring were doing, but as a fan, kind of dangerous too. And it made it fun and almost like you weren't supposed to be there, even though it was at a local arena, but you know, it was still, awesome. I have an awesome Bam Bam Bigelow Taz story. It was at ECW at our local arena, and for some reason I was not there, but a couple of my friends were there, and it's an old hockey arena, and you actually have to go down like, I don't know, 3 or 4 steps from the main area until you're down into the upper bowl of the arena. Well, I guess before the show, Taz and Bam Bam said, I'll suplex you through these doors, because they were the old fashioned swinging doors. Like, you didn't have to put much pressure on them for them to swing. Well, little did they know that once everybody was in the building, one side of those gets locked. Well, Bam Bam suplexed Taz through the door, and he did not stop. And the show stopped though. And it was incredible. And you saw like the owner going absolutely bananas, and it was great. Amazing story. Anyways, that whole era of like the Attitude Era, Rick and I have talked about, that was some of the oddest times in wrestling, because you had the birth of Stone Cold Steve Austin and the DX and the NWO and all that, but you also had stuff that was just still stupid, but for some reason it was like accepted. What were they? The Oddities, absolutely horrid gimmicks, but again, we just accepted it because it was part of the show, I guess. I don't know. It was just a very odd time. That leads me to my second almost ECW moment is when I discovered Ring of Honor. And this is, I don't know, pretty early on, but not from the beginning. It was like ECW. It was on like super late at night on some odd channel. And I decided, well, I'll record it. I was watching WWE, but not caring about it. It was just something that it was a routine. And I recorded it, and I watched that first show, and I was blown away that this existed. Again, another quote unquote punk rock moment. Like, wait a minute, there's people out there doing this. Well, this is way cooler than what's on Monday nights. Just like everything, I went headfirst in. I was Joe Ring of Honor. It was amazing watching those shows, and then watching people like that you didn't realize would go on to be who they are, like seeing early Hangman Page. I didn't know Hangman was going to be who he was. He was just some young skinny kid. Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, Steve Corino had a third generation of his career there. It was so fun. But different from ECW is it was the first time I was really introduced to the Japanese style, like the Bucks. I saw Okada, and I didn't even realize I saw Okada because I knew who he was, but I didn't know it was that. And unbelievable. But seeing those early shows and seeing how good all those guys and girls were then, it makes a lot of sense why they literally changed the world now. It's just go back. If you have Honor Club, go back and watch some of those early Ring of Honor shows. Like, I'm just thinking right now, anything with Samoa Joe and Kevin Steen, watch, because it's all good. You see Kevin Owens being kind of born, I guess, because Steen was trying a little bit of everything, and go back. It's incredible. And finally, that leads me to my third deep dive in where we are today. When I heard via Twitter that the Bucks were going to make an announcement on something that was literally, I think it's that they were going to change the world, or the world was about to change or whatever. And they announced AEW, and I was like, oh, okay. This sounds awesome. I like all these people that are at this huge press conference. It seems legit. I'm going to give it a shot. Watching that first episode, it hooked me. I was all in, excuse the pun. I was all in, head first in, deep diving. This was my new favorite thing in the world. And just being introduced to like some of those people, or actually seeing them is what I should say. Some of the names I had heard here and there, but just seeing the level of athleticism and just seeing it on national TV, not on some niche channel at 3 a.m. This was big. This was huge. And I was all about it. And I think me and Rick talked about doing the podcast for a minute actually before we did it. And once we started, it was just the snowball effect. I mean, this is some of the most fun I've ever had talking about wrestling. And that's going to be how I ended here, like, is in full circle. I talked about liking wrestling growing up and in high school and everything. Me and my buddies, we used to sit at our lunch table, and that's what we would talk. We would talk about how we talk on this podcast. And it was just natural, flowing conversation every day about wrestling and what if scenarios, or, oh, you're stupid. That's never going to happen. Blah, 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 blah. Just like we're still doing it today, 30 years later. Unreal. I'm going to take this last time here I just want to thank Rick, Biddy, and Jay. You guys are some of my best friends, and I appreciate you guys every single week. I appreciate your opinions, our banter. We're true friends, and I've only met one of you, and it's amazing. So anyways, I've taken up 15 minutes of your time. Remember, we're at Elite City Pod on all social media. Give us a follow, interact with us. We really enjoy it. Tell us your wrestling stories. This was just mine. And I'm sure they're going to ask me all kind of questions about my insanity next week, and I'll answer them. But yeah, tell us your stories. That's what we want to hear. Until next week, later.